Part 103. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1050. Popular Recommendations. This is not what she wants. Yu Xiang was anxious and looked at Kong Chuying's sleeves pitifully. Mom, I don't want to marry into a poor family, and I don't want to be rich and wealthy, as long as the situation of our family is similar. If you and Dad divorce, but what should I do? When your second sister married your second brother-in-law, our family was a poor family. Kong Chuying sighed and patted her youngest daughter on the shoulder. Xiang you are already over 20 years old. You can't always put yourself in such trouble. Our happiness rests on others, and we cannot always think about getting something for nothing. In this world, there is never a free pie. You envy your second sister for being able to find your second brother-in-law, but have you ever thought about it? If you were in your second sister's position, how would you be with your second brother-in-law? He wanted to answer bravely, yes, but he felt that such an answer was too hypocritical and no one would believe it. Yu Xiang just stopped talking. When Yu Tao met Josei Kang, the Zhou family was still at its lowest point. Most of the time, it was Yu Tao who protected Josei Kang. If it were her, how could she choose such a man? At that time, she was secretly joking too silly, and the marriage between Yu Tao and Josei Kang was also opposed by the whole family except Kong Chuying. If the Zhou family hadn't suddenly turned around 1 month before the wedding, or the Yu family wouldn't have let Yu Tao's wedding go smoothly, it's absolutely certain. At this moment, Kong Chuying brought up such old things again, and Yu Tao, who had a trace of unbearable expression on her face, immediately returned to normal. Yes, if she continues to be soft-hearted in such a family, sooner or later, she will regret it. It doesn't matter that she endures hardships herself, but if the Zhou family is implicated in this, it will be a big sin. Back then, the old man and the old lady from the Yu family went to the Zhou family, pointed at Zhou Jingping and Lin Yangkai's noses and scolded them, saying they didn't teach their children well and wanted to eat swan meat. Even though they had such a bad attitude, the Zhou family did not hold grudges and still provided them with unlimited help, but what did they get in exchange? So, some people can't be tolerated. If at that time, she could stick to the bottom line and prevent them from getting what they didn't deserve, or maybe they wouldn't be so shameless now, right? Moreover, among all the mistakes, the most intolerable was that they actually took advantage of Josei Kang. She was the daughter of the Yu family. How could they come up with such a disgusting idea? That's all. The past has passed, and because of the past, she can understand their true nature and make the right choice. From now on, she will not give them the chance to hurt her. At this time, she was especially fortunate that the Zhou family's background was here. If she had only married into a moderately wealthy family, she would never be able to live in peace in this life. Thinking of this, Yu Tao looked at Kong Chuying. Mom, let's go. Kong Chuying nodded. I'll pack my clothes and leave. Mom, I don't need any more clothes. I've already prepared everything for you. Yu Tao looked at her mother seriously. Don't say no, I am your daughter and I should respect you. Mom doesn't want to refuse, I just think it shouldn't be too wasteful. Kong Chuying smiled lovingly at her. Mom understands your thoughts, but there are some things that have been with Mom for a lifetime, and you always have to clean up. Lin Yangkai looked at Yu Tao. Tao, accompany your mother to clean up. Mom is waiting for you here. Yu Tao followed Kong Chuying back to the bedroom obediently. After a moment's hesitation, Yu Guangzhu followed suit and walked in. Lin Yangkai smiled faintly and said, if anyone wants to move out of this house, just go and embarrass the mother and daughter. Yu Guangzhu paused, turned around, and looked at Lin Yangkai angrily. You are too bullying. Lin Yangkai shrugged at him. I just bullied you, what's wrong? I'm going to broadcast what you did to your radio station to see if you still have the face to see others, And to see if your Joe family will be accused of bullying others. Okay, I hope you do this. Let's see if people will scold our family or praise our family. Don't you know what bad things you have done? You still have the nerve to threaten me here, Yu Guangju. Do you really think I was scared? If it weren't for Tao, do you think I would let you live in this house? You know how much you have exposed yourself to your daughter. If you continue to act like this, you will bear the consequences. Needless to say, Yu Guangju was really afraid of this happening. From the looks of it, Kong Qiuying had no intention of living with him. If he lost his house, he would be single for the rest of his life. Although he disliked Kong Qiuying, the other party still took good care of him. Now that the other party was leaving, he had no regrets about anything else. What was unhappy was that he lost someone to take care of him. If you still have a house, it shouldn't be difficult to find another one, right? Thinking like this, the anger in his heart actually faded away little by little, and there was even some eager hope. Or maybe his second spring was coming. Did things get done so smoothly? Chu Xia looked unbelieving when she heard Yu Tao talking about what happened on the phone. It was so different from what she imagined. Is this going well? Yu Tao couldn't help but smile bitterly. While we were talking, Yu Mei slipped out to find my brother and my sister-in-law. Then, when they came back with their children, my mother and I happened to pack up. Got something to go. My nieces and nephews hugged my mother's legs and cried out of breath. To be honest, even though I knew the children were taught to do this by adults, I still couldn't bear to see them sad. I thought my mother she would not be able to persist. Unexpectedly, she finally left with me firmly. But she sighed and paused for a long time before continuing, but even though my mother did this, she felt uncomfortable. She was always in a daze on the road. When we talked to her, she was always confused. Can't hear it? After returning home, she was still in a daze. When her mother-in-law brought the documents to her to sign, although she signed it obediently, tears kept flowing. For a moment, I wanted to stop my mother from divorcing my father. I felt that I thought this was a way to make my mother happy, but in fact, it made her life even more miserable than before. You can't say that. In the beginning, Auntie will definitely not be able to let go. No matter how unaffectionate a person is, he will not be happy if he suddenly breaks off the relationship after staying in the same home for so many years. What's more, Auntie is so affectionate. People. Give her time and let her feel more at ease, and she will get better. After thinking about it, Chu Xia suggested, how about you bring your aunt to the capital? It will be far away from the familiar environment, and it is impossible to meet someone you don't want to see. Someone, or can she get out faster? Okay, let me discuss it with her. Originally, I asked my mother to come here and asked her to help me take care of the child. If I now ask her to take her to the capital, I'm afraid she will feel conflicted. Sigh. Yu Tao sighed and said, my mother is the kind of person who doesn't particularly want to take advantage of others. If she feels that her coming here doesn't have much effect at all, she will be even more uneasy. And I'm worried that after she doesn't feel her own value, she will ask to move out and live on her own. If that's the case, what's the point of everything I'm doing now? Auntie is also quite stubborn. However, I still advise you to bring her to live in the capital for a while. With my father and mother's experience, it will be easier for Auntie to accept staying with you. After thinking for a while, Yu Tao responded, okay, I'll try my best to persuade her to go to the capital with me to stay for a while. Hey, I thought I knew my mother quite well, but now, I'm a little unsure about her thoughts. After hanging up the phone in Chuxia, Yu Tao went to find Kong Qiuying, who was holding Yanyan and sitting on the sofa in a daze, while Lin Yangkai who was sitting next to her looked helpless. Mom. When Yu Tao called out, Lin Yangkai and Kong Qiuying both looked over. Then, Kong Qiuying's face turned red, Her lips moved twice, and she lowered her head uncomfortably. Mom, don't be like this. Yu Tao sat next to Kong Qiuying. I brought you here because I hope you can be happy. Now that I see you like this, I feel very guilty and have doubts about my previous judgment. Questioned. Tao, it's not that Mom misses that home, it's just. Sighing, Kong Qiuying smiled bitterly. It's hard for you to make Mom happy all of a sudden. I'm sorry, I was too impatient. Yu Tao also sighed and turned to look at Lin Yangkaiu. Mom, I just called my siblings and told them about my mother's current condition. She wants us to go to the capital together. Wait for a while, what do you think? After thinking about it for a while, Lin Yangkaiu nodded. This is a good idea. She looked at Kong Qiuying. Sister, why don't we go to my daughter-in-law's place in the capital together tomorrow? A change of environment may be good for your mood, and the courtyard where you live should make you feel close to me. Besides, my daughter-in-law's mother is a person with a very good personality. You must have many friends with her. Common topic. Okay. Unexpectedly, Kong Qiuying agreed immediately. At this moment, Yu Tao looked at her mother with a look that was full of research. Is her understanding of her mother wrong for so many years? You kid, how do you look at people? Kong Qiuying felt uncomfortable being stared at by her daughter, so she glared at her. I'm not willing to live with you just to make you look at me every day and worry me. Tao, Mom told the truth. It's impossible for you to let Mom stop caring about the people there after she leaves that home. In any case, your two brothers and Xiaoxiang are also Mom's children. For Mom, everything is a piece of meat that has fallen off the body, and she will worry about every one of them that is not doing well. In the past, it was because of this kind of thinking that they later became dissatisfied. Mom has figured it out and will not be confused like this again in the future. However, it is impossible to really ignore them. In the future, when everyone has figured it out, Mom still hopes to see them often. Okay. R1152. First marriage then love. Mr. Mayor, please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1051. Popular recommendations. Second update. You can meet them whenever you want, and I will never have any objection. Yu Tao looked at Kong Qiuying with some distress. Mom, you can do whatever you want from now on, and you don't have to look at anyone else. Eye color. You silly kid. Kong Qiuying laughed. You mean, if Mom wants to take your sister over, she doesn't need to tell you, she can just do it directly. Mom. Yu Tao smiled helplessly. You can make such a choice for me, how can you make such a decision regardless of it? If you don't even have this little trust, how can I be worthy of doing it? Your daughter. Tao. Kong Qiuying looked at her daughter with eyes full of emotion. Over the years, only her second daughter could give her such respect, which made her even more convinced that her choice was the right one. Of course, she believed that many people would say that she chose to divorce her husband and live with her second daughter because she was greedy for wealth. She had not hesitated about this, but it was her second daughter who had been contributing to that family all these years. If she only wanted to live with her second daughter, for the sake of her own reputation, the second daughter will never be able to live her own little life without worries. So, let others say that she is greedy for wealth. Anyway, she will not lose any meat. After living to this age, she also figured out that caring too much about what others said would only make her live in pain forever, so she should just follow her own heart. Mom. After hesitating, Yu Tao looked at Kong Qiuying and asked, why did you fall in love with my dad back then? Yu Guangzhu had a bad reputation when she was young, so she never understood what her mother was like. I've asked Kong Qiuying before why she fell in love with her father, but Kong Qiuying never answered directly. Hey. Kong Qiuying let out a long sigh. This is human life. Back then, when I was working the night shift, I was kidnapped. A man saved me. He looked very similar to your father. So when we went on a blind date, I agreed immediately. Your grandma and grandpa also asked people to inquire about him, saying that he had a bad reputation and advised me to look at other people. But I felt that a man who was willing to do what was right and brave could not be too bad, so I insisted that I would not marry anyone other than him. At that time, I also knew that your father didn't like me too much, but I felt that as long as I treated him well, one day his heart would turn towards me. After we got married, he was always lukewarm towards me, and I kept putting up with it. Later, he called me cheap and said he looked down on me like that. It's so shameless for me to insist on marrying him. I was furious at the time, so I just said it bluntly, if you hadn't saved me, how could I have been so determined to marry you? Then, this suddenly stirred up a hornet's nest. He insisted on asking me if it was not clean anymore. Only then did I know that I had made a mistake. But, what else could I do at that time? We are married and have children. There is no other way but to admit it and endure it. Yu Tao had a look of surprise on her face. No wonder her father always called her mother a rag shoe every time her parents quarreled. She always wondered why her father would use such words to insult her when her mother was such an honest person. Mom, it turns out that the reason is here. In this case, her father is no longer a toy. Even if he is her biological father, she still wants to scold him. He is a good girl who does not dislike you and marries you, but you have no energy to marry you. It was like this after enduring it once, and it's still like this after enduring it twice. So, this time I decided not to tolerate it anymore. Let others say whatever they want. I can't just follow my daughter's life just because I'm afraid of what others will say. Kong Chuying looked at her daughter with firm eyes. Don't worry, Tao, no matter what your dad and your grandparents do, Mom will not change her mind. Mom. Yu Tao hugged Kong Chuying in emotion. She really didn't know what to say. Only then did she realize that her mother was not as cowardly as she had seen before. All her forbearance was just unwillingness. To be a drag on the children, to be precise, I don't want to drag her down. Among you, your personality is the most like mine. Kong Chuying sighed and rubbed her daughter's head. So, you have paid the most for that family and shouldered the most. Mom, it's okay. If I've done it and they don't cherish it, then I can really let it go. Otherwise, I will always feel that I owe that family. Mom always said, I would rather have others owe me than myself to others. Of course it's the best if you think so. Kong Chuying looked at her daughter dotingly. Mom has been in a bad mood these days, which makes you worry. Don't worry, since Mom has decided to live with you in the future. You will no longer look forward and backward. However, we don't have to rush to the capital in the next few days. Didn't we say that the centenarians of the South, North, and South will be in less than 10 days? Why don't we wait until the child turns 100 before we go there together? I know that you are worried that Mom will feel uncomfortable looking at the familiar environment here or meeting people from your dad's side, but now that Mom has said so much, do you still have that worry? Okay, listen to Mom. Yu Tao agreed happily, and just in time to see her mother-in-law coming out of the kitchen, she smiled and said, Mom, my mom wants Nan Bai Bei to go to the capital together after they are 100 years old, or else, let's stay here for now. I'm afraid Yan won't get used to running back and forth all the time. If you're worried about your siblings, just ask Uncle Lee to take you there, okay? Sister. Lin Yangkai looked at Kong Chuying doubtfully. Didn't you respond well just now? Why did you change your mind in such a short time? No, Kong Chuying told Lin Yangkai what she had just told her daughter. I really didn't expect that Aunt Kong would have such a reason for marrying my sister-in-law's father. Chu Xia looked at her mother-in-law with emotion. So, we have wronged her before. In fact, she is not weak at all, just you have to endure it for the sake of your children, right? Yes, Lin Yangkai nodded. In fact, Your sister-in-law's personality is somewhat similar to hers. She is very responsible, but sometimes a little sensitive, but she is very kind-hearted. When getting along with such a person, you will feel uncomfortable at the beginning. I think the other person is a little more particular, but after a while you will find that when you are with them, you never have to worry about them plotting against you. That's true. Chusia nodded in approval, then pointed to the tip of her nose and said, Mom, if you have been with me for a long time, you will find that I will never scheme against others. When did I say that you were plotting against others? Lin Yangkai looked at her speechlessly. If I didn't know better, I would have thought you were guilty. You don't have 300 taels of silver here. Ahem. Chusia deliberately wrinkled her little face bitterly. Mom, you've started to accuse people wrongly again, haven't you? I'm obviously afraid of falling out of favor, and I'm deliberately trying to gain a sense of presence in front of you. How can you misunderstand me? Woolen cloth. Having been with my daughter-in-law for a long time, she has already adapted to her new vocabulary. Lin Yangkai looked at her funny. I came back in 2 days, do you think you still need to brush up on your sense of presence? Hee hee. Chusia smiled sheepishly. Mom, am I too kind? I have already received so much favor than my sister-in-law, and it is really inappropriate for me to act jealous here. It's the standard of yours to get a bargain but still act well. As she said this, Lin Yangkai looked at Chusia with eyes filled with distress and worry. Her daughter-in-law had just given birth, and her son was on a mission. This time the two of them came closer. There is no news about you, Ban. At such a young age, how much pain does one feel? Mom, don't look at me like this. Chusia coughed uncomfortably. I admit that I am worried about Zhou Mikang, but I don't feel aggrieved. From the day I married him, I thought about it. Today, all military wives are like this, how could I be an exception? Don't worry, I will keep my life on track. When Zhou Mikang comes back, I will find that I didn't delay anything during his absence. Of course. She smiled sheepishly. If possible, I still hope to receive news from him as soon as possible. Regardless of whether he will come back or not, I want to let us know if he is safe. Mom, don't you think so? Yes, Lin Yangkai nodded vigorously. When Xiaomi comes back, we will settle the score with him together. No matter how difficult it is, we should call home. You too, you too. Mrs. Zhou, who had been sitting next to her without interrupting, shook her head dissatisfied and glared at her mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Chusia quickly said, Grandma, don't worry. Why don't you worry? Mrs. Zhou interrupted her dissatisfiedly. I have to be the first one to settle accounts, and the south, north, and north are the second ones. Aren't you two being too bullying? You don't know respect at all. The old loves the young. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law looked at old Mrs. Zhou with embarrassment, really defeated. Chusia slapped her forehead fiercely. By the way, Mom, there is something I should tell you. However, you must promise not to be angry after hearing this, and not to help me vent my anger. Otherwise, I will not said. Who is bullying you? Lin Yangkai immediately sat upright when she heard what her daughter-in-law said. Tell Mom, who is so brave? You dare to look for trouble when I am not around. I really don't think you have a long life. Chusia looked at her mother-in-law with a dark look. Mom, I just emphasized that if you help me vent my anger, I won't say anything. Lin Yangkai frowned. Then you can't let others bully you, right? Someone smiled and blinked his big eyes at his mother-in-law. Mom, do you think I am someone waiting to be bullied? Besides, there are so many people at home, including Grandma, how could I be bullied? After looking at her daughter-in-law for a few times and recalling the way she handled things before, Lin Yangkai finally compromised. Okay, Mom promises that she won't go to settle accounts with the other party, just tell her or 1152. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 1052. 1 Update. The second sister-in-law of the Lin family in the capital came to see me. Taking a look at Lin Yangkai's face, Chu Xia continued, her youngest son secretly went on a mission with Zhou Mikang's troops. Lin Yangkai frowned and answered, then she turned her anger on you. That's right. Chu Xia spread her hands, she was really angry. When she came, her nose was not a nose, not a face. Mom, I guess she can still find you later, so I have to report it to you. One time. Come on, I'm afraid she won't come. Lin Yangkai snorted coldly, then looked at old Mrs. Zhou in confusion. Mom, you're not angry, her mother-in-law's temper was hotter than hers, and now she's acting like this. The deputy's complacent expression was really strange. What am I so angry about? Old Mrs. Zhou spread her hands, her son is attracted to our Chu Xia but not to her. It's too late for me to be happy, so how can I be angry? Mom, what do you mean by this? Lin Yangkai turned to look at Chu Xia with a puzzled expression. Xia, what do you mean when Grandma said that? When did Lin Wangzhou turn to you? Lin Wangzhou wrote her a letter, saying that if they could not accept from the bottom of their hearts that my parents and I would return to the Lin family, he would not live with her after he came back, so she came to me angrily. After a pause, Chu Xia added, she just received this letter. It was sent to her by Lin Wangzhou after he left. No wonder Lin Yangkai looked astonished, how could she keep calm until now? Speaking of which, this person's temperament is really unpleasant. I have only met her twice. I don't have a good impression of her at all. No, it's just that Xinwan has a good temper and wants me to be my sister-in-law, so I don't bother to talk to her. Auntie is really good-natured. Third brother told me a long time ago that he would also go on an expedition with the team. But he asked me to help him hide it. I hesitated, so I asked Zhou Mikang for advice. He said that since he had already promised Lin Wenjia, he shouldn't have gone against his promise. Then, he reminded his elder brother sideways. The eldest brother supported the third brother's choice, so he didn't tell the eldest aunt, and then, because of the second aunt, the eldest aunt also knew what I had hidden for my third brother, but she didn't cause any trouble for me. Instead, she called me to comfort me, saying that Zhou Mikang and the others would be fine. Let me not worry. I was embarrassed and took the initiative to apologize to her. She said, I did the right thing, and she was very happy that third brother was willing to believe me. She said she was calling because she was worried about my psychological burden. She also told me that she had advised Ernie not to come to me. But the second aunt couldn't listen. She didn't come with the second aunt. It wasn't that she didn't care about me and didn't want to offend the second aunt. It was because she knew that many people in the family could protect me. If she came, she would be in the way. I believe Xinwan's words. Lin Yangkai sighed quietly, we had a pretty good relationship when we were girls. I tend to be impatient, so when we were together, she basically let me. She is a very generous woman and has the courage to take on responsibilities. Anyone who marries her will be blessed. That's true. Chu Xia nodded, but couldn't help but sigh. If my aunt had married Uncle Jing back then, there would be no Jingjia and my eldest brother now. Speaking of which, this is not a bad thing, Mom. Am I right? That's true. Lin Yangkai looked at her daughter-in-law solemnly and warned, Xia, you can't let your Aunt Zhu know about this. With her temper, if she knew what happened to Jing Monian back then, she would really have a falling out. Sky. She already knew it, Chu Xia said. Understood. Lin Yangkai looked at Chu Xia with a puzzled expression, couldn't this be what she told you herself? Yes, Chu Xia nodded, After our family recognized the Lin family in Beijing, she once went to 401 to find Jingzhe, and we had lunch together. Then at noon, brother Jing had something to go out, so I chatted with her. As we talked about my father's recognition of his ancestors and his return to the clan. She smiled and asked me, "Uncle Jing helped us recognize our relatives, right?" I was so scared that I didn't dare to say anything, so she rubbed my head in a funny way and said that your Uncle Jing always thought I was a fool, and I didn't bother to expose him. I already knew about what happened between him and your aunt, just pretending to be confused. She said that those things happened before Uncle Jing established a relationship with her, and she was too lazy to bother with Uncle Jing about those old things. At the same time, she also admired her aunt, saying that she might not have been able to make such a decision. Although she didn't hate another man, it was too difficult to give up the one she really liked. She also asked me to get closer to my aunt after returning to the Lin family. She said that people like my aunt would not use dirty tricks. As long as I have a good relationship with her, she will protect her no matter what others do. Holding mine. Then, she asked me not to tell anyone about it. In the past, I didn't mention it because my mother and Aunt Zhu didn't have a good relationship. Now, you are both so close, so I don't need to hide it anymore. This guy really pretends to be. Lin Yangkai was speechless. It seems that I really underestimated her before. I always thought she was a straight-faced donkey with no good intentions. Now it seems that I probably underestimated her. In her eyes he is a heartless, stupid ass. Actually, Mom, Aunt Zhu and my uncle all have similar personalities. Otherwise, they wouldn't be friends, right? Do you think that by saying this, Mom won't care about you anymore? Lin Yangkai glared at her daughter-in-law. You little bastard, if you had told me earlier, I would have saved myself less embarrassment in front of your Aunt Zhu. After you two recognized each other, she deliberately asked me if someone said that Jing Monian and Zhang Xinwan had talked. I just explained it stupidly. She probably watched me racking my brains to tell the lie. The look makes my stomach almost twitch with laughter. After thinking for a while, Chu Xia said, "Actually, it should be because of what you did that made Aunt Zhu recognize you more. If you don't think about the other person, just tell the truth." "Grandma, don't you think so?" "Yes." Mrs. Zhou nodded. "Zinkin is not stupid, otherwise, she wouldn't have helped our family so much. In fact, she just used that method to protect our family." "Yang Kaiu, what did you just say?" "To say that would really be an injustice to Zinkin." "Mom, I know." Lin Yangkai smiled sheepishly. "If you are used to making trouble with her, you will reflexively wonder if she is laughing at me. Indeed, she should be teasing me at that time, but she did not mean any harm." Of. After hesitating for a moment, Chu Xia asked, "Mom, what I'm curious about is that you and your aunt are good friends, and you and Aunt Zhu are also good friends. So why don't your aunt and Aunt Zhu know each other?" "Your aunt and uncle know each other, but they are not very familiar with each other, because your aunt and I were in the same class at the time, and your Aunt Zhu was in another class. At that time, she always competed with me, and she didn't bother to have close friendships with the people around me. Later, when we arranged our own jobs, we couldn't see each other even more. So that's it." Chu Xia looked astonished. "I was wondering about this earlier and never had the nerve to ask. What's there to be embarrassed about? Remember, if you have any doubts in the future, ask them as soon as possible. Don't hold it in and affect your body. Your good health and good mood now not only affects you, but also the south, north, and north. Woolen cloth." "Mom, I understand." Chu Xia smiled helplessly, "but I won't let my curiosity affect my mood." "Mom, am I just such a gossip in your mind?" "Haha." Lin Yangkai just smiled and did not answer. The meaning couldn't be more obvious. The next day, Zhang Xinwan came over with big and small bags. She first hugged the two chubby little guys, and then took Chuxia to look at them for a long time before she breathed a sigh of relief. It's great. The kids are growing well. The adults are also recovering well, so I'm finally relieved. As soon as Chuxia's mind turned around, she understood the reason why she was so nervous, and said with a smile, I already said I don't care about second auntie, how can you not believe it? Zhang Xinhuan sighed and said, it's not that I don't believe it, but I'm worried that if you are affected, you must know that your current mood is very important. A bad mood will affect the quality of the milk, and it will affect the health of the child. Hey, your second uncle has such a temper, the more you persuade her, the more energetic you become. My mother said the same thing yesterday. Don't worry, I won't let irrelevant things affect my mood. Chuxia said while glancing at her mother-in-law, Mom, do you believe me? I believe it, Lin Yangkai hurriedly followed her daughter-in-law's answer, but she was secretly laughing at her daughter-in-law's pettiness. Obviously, she cared about her answer yesterday. However, this is the impression this little girl has on her. If something happens, you must get to the bottom of it. Otherwise, she will try to trick you every now and then. Sooner or later, you will get what she wants. Give up. By the way, our second auntie feeling better these days? After thinking about it, Chuxia turned the question back. It wasn't that she wanted to care about second auntie, she just wanted to know herself and the enemy. It's okay. Zhang Xinhuan shook her head helplessly, your eldest brother and your third brother have gone, and your uncle and I don't think it will be impossible to survive if the sky falls. It would be better for her to shed tears in front of your grandma. If she didn't know better, she would have thought that something had really happened to your second brother and fourth brother. Why did she have to come here to find you? I just wanted to show it to your grandpa. After a slight pause, she suddenly changed the subject. By the way, Chuxia, where are your father and your mother? They went to the garden. Aren't we going back to the capital in a few days? They were afraid that the vegetables in the garden would be old, so they collected them in advance and gave them to relatives and friends. Chuxia looked at Zhang Xinhuan in confusion. Do you have anything to say to them, uncle? To be continued. LWXS. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1053. Popular recommendations. Second update. It's something. When your father returned to the Lin family, didn't your great-grandfather agree to return your father's share to him? Your father said that there was no place to put it, so the Lin family would take care of it for the time being. After a pause, Zhang Xinhuan said, I know that third brother said that because there is no place to put it. It is just one reason. In fact, the more important reason is that I am embarrassed. Early summer, please persuade them more. There is nothing to be embarrassed about. It is theirs and it is natural for them to accept it. If anyone dares to talk nonsense, your uncle and I will not let it go. What do the second uncle and his mother have in mind? After thinking about it with his toes, he knew who was planning this matter, so Chuxia asked truthfully. Yes, Zhang Xinhuan nodded happily, your uncle was originally going to come with me, but just as he was about to go out, he answered the phone and wanted to go back to the meeting, so that I could come over and have a preview. It is a good thing to be kind and not greedy for money, but there is no need to let unrelated people take advantage of things that belong to you, even if it is for you. What's more? Zhang Xinhuan turned to Lin Yangkai. What's more, with the strength of the Zhou family, we can definitely protect your family, so we shouldn't give up, right? In the last sentence, who is asked? Lin Yangkai glared at her. Okay, you don't have to talk to me anymore. I promise you, our Zhou family will definitely not covet the things in early summer, but we will definitely not let anyone covet them. What I want is this guarantee. Zhang Xinhuan didn't hide it. Yangkai, don't be angry. I really didn't mean to provoke you. If it was just a conversation between you and me, I would definitely say yes and no. Yes, say whatever you want. But now, I represent the Lin family, and you represent the Zhou family. I don't want it to be difficult for you. Zhaidong said that if the Zhou family can't protect the third child and his family, he will have to think of other ways. But in principle, he still doesn't want to cause discord between the brothers and let outsiders laugh. At this point, she sighed, anyway, every family has sutras that are difficult to recite. Old people all like to have more children and grandchildren, but the problem is that if the children and grandchildren have good character, having more children will help each other, but if the children and grandchildren have bad character, it will really become a disaster. Auntie, are you having trouble at home recently? Chu Xia looked at Zhang Xinwan seriously. Regarding her father's return to the family, the second uncle's family had the most indifferent attitude. In this regard, she can understand that what originally belongs to her needs to be divided by one more person, or even more than herself. Feeling uncomfortable is the reaction of most people, and she cannot be too demanding on others. However, after several battles, didn't everything come to light? What kind of monster is this? Zhang Xinwan mentioned this matter specifically, and it was definitely not without reason. When I first married your uncle and your second uncle had a very good relationship. If anything happened, the two brothers would discuss it, and I would not interfere with their affairs. So, in your second uncle's life, before uncle got married, everyone got along well. After your second uncle got married, your uncle was still the same as before. He called your second uncle to discuss everything with him. But gradually, your second uncle's attitude changed. Finally one day, a fierce conflict broke out between the two brothers. The reason is that your eldest uncle came to your second uncle to discuss celebrating the birthday of the old man. In previous years, the two brothers discussed the matter of celebrating the birthday of the old man and the old lady. As a result, this time, your second uncle acted very angry. He thinks it is disrespectful for your uncle to come to him after he has made his decision. He said that he has already married and hopes that in the future, the two families will take turns taking care of such important matters. Your uncle was already very angry at his increasingly indifferent attitude. Hearing what he said, he became even more angry and started to quarrel with him, saying that no matter whether he got married or not, he was still his brother. You must be under his control. Then, your second wife got involved and said with a smile, "Brother, you are wrong like this. Zhiliang and I are already married, and we should have our own right to speak." That's what you said, is it a bit bullying? Her words made your uncle truly realize that the brother in front of him was no longer the one who was willing to follow him and obey him in everything. In fact, he is not an unreasonable person, but the two brothers have been close to each other since they were young, and that kind of relationship made him a habit. At that time, due to some personal reasons, I rarely paid attention to the things between them. Only to get to that point. It was also because of that fuss that I realized that since I married your uncle, I have to shoulder my own responsibilities, otherwise, this family will only become more and more fragmented. Since then, my relationship with your uncle has gotten better and better, but the relationship between our two families has become weaker and weaker. Living under the same roof, the atmosphere has been particularly awkward. Soon after, your uncle voluntarily quit the family business. After being transferred to the town, our family also moved out of the Lin family compound. When we went back, the Zhiliang couple who had completely controlled the Lin family's property were even more repelled by us. If your second uncle hadn't been framed later and almost lost all the Lin family's property, the two brothers would have really wanted to. We have no contact with each other since then. The background of our Lin family is there. Therefore, when many families suffered unreasonable disasters, the Lin family was fine. Because of this, your second uncle was a little careless and misled others. Friends who were originally close friends with him hid far away. His father-in-law's family, who wanted to wear a pair of pants, quickly drew a clear line with him. Li Xinwei took the children directly back to Li's house and made it clear that if the second uncle doesn't handle the matter properly, they will divorce. Although your uncle was angry with your second uncle, he was his biological brother after all, and it was related to the life and death of the Lin family, so he put down the work at hand and moved around to clean up the mess. In the end, it was your uncle's good friend who helped the Lin family escape the disaster. Qin Chuan Tao. After that incident, your uncle immediately announced your uncle's decision to be the heir to the family head. Because of your uncle's saving grace, your second uncle could not say anything no matter how unwilling she was. As for your second uncle, she couldn't even say anything. What to say? After your uncle became the head of the family, he still left the property to your second uncle to take care of. His idea is that the honors of the ancestors cannot be lost for a lifetime. Without the help of the Qin family, it would be difficult for the Lin family to stand up again. So he must fight for his place in the circle. Of course, there is another reason for him to make such a choice, which is the relationship with your second uncle. If he takes over the Lin family's property from now on, the two brothers will never be able to get close again in this life. After all these years, although the relationship with your second uncle cannot return to the past, it has become much better than the worst period. Although your second uncle occasionally reveals that she is the head of the family to your uncle. He was dissatisfied, but he didn't dare to make any small moves. It wasn't until your family returned to the Lin family that they began to make small plans again. To be honest, I really didn't expect that they would have the nerve to make such a request. Sighing, Zhang Xinwan shook her head helplessly. Do it or not. Head of the family, your uncle and I don't mind, but what we do mind is that the Lin family cannot be destroyed in their hands again, so Chu Xia, you must make your parents harden. Chu Xia only knew a little bit about what happened back then, but now that Zhang Xinwan told her in such detail, her impression of Lin and Niang was even worse. It is obvious that he has done something wrong, but he still dares to think twice. This kind of person is really shameless to a certain extent. The key point is that the couple pretends to be reasonable and magnanimous in front of others. However, hearing what Zhang Xinwan meant, Chu Xia looked at her in confusion. Auntie, you mean that my second uncle wants to be the head of the house again? But what does this have to do with our family? They should have two plans now. Either they can take over your family's due share, or they can ask your parents to support your second uncle as the head of the family. No, Chu Xia still looked puzzled. Even if they really have that idea, my parents will not support them. What do uncle and aunt have to worry about? It's not like you haven't learned anything about your second uncle's mouth. She won't state her purpose so clearly. When the time comes, soft and hard will be applied alternately, and... After a pause, Zhang Xinwan said, after your parents, in my heart, you are the most important thing. As long as they lead you, they will not worry about your parents not falling into their trap. Your uncle and I are worried about this, so we must remind you in advance. Don't worry, we won't play their tricks so easily. Chu Xia looked at Zhang Xinwan with a smile. Uncle, I have to say that you and my uncle still underestimate my father and my mother. It is true that they have lived in the countryside since they were young and have not seen much of the world. However, this does not mean that they are confused. It is not easy for ordinary people to convince them. Especially, if they know how the Zhou family treats me, they will be even less likely to take advantage of others. You and your uncle, just put your hearts in your stomach. No, Zhang Xinwan said with a wry smile, of course I know this, but what if they are using the group of people who went on a mission? That group of people who went on a mission, Chu Xia's face suddenly darkened. If they dare to use this matter to fool my parents, I will not be able to spare them first. Indeed, with my current ability, I can't do it. What, but... Mrs. Zhou quickly interrupted her, but we are still there, do you really think we are dead? If she has the ability, she will try jumping up and down, as long as she is not afraid of limping her legs. So, do you really think that our Zhou family is easy to bully? Lin Yangkai also snorted coldly. Xinhuan, what you said today really disappoints me. We have known each other for so many years. Do you think I am that kind of person, a person who lets people sit on his neck and shit on him? 1152. First marriage then love. Mr. Mayor, please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1054. 1 Update. Of course you are not someone who lets people sit on your neck and shit, but after having been sister-in-law with Li Xinwei for so many years, no one knows better than me how mean and shameless she is. Zhang Xinhuan smiled bitterly and looked at Lin Yangkai. It's not like you don't know the reviews from the outside world. Which one doesn't say that she is generous and that I don't understand the general situation? This was true. If she hadn't known Zhang Xinhuan for a long time and knew her personality, she might have been misled by public opinion. However, this was what she despised Zhang Xinhuan the most. Why would she let such a person do that? Son. With this thought in her mind, Lin Yangkai said it straight away. Zhang Xinhuan's smile became even more bitter. You really don't feel hurt when you stand and talk. Think about it. Am I a master who is willing to be wronged? But why can't I understand clearly? Let me put it this way, if it weren't for the fact that you were Chu Xia's mother-in-law, based on your experience of dealing with her, wouldn't you think she was a particularly forthright and easy-to-talk person? Thinking back carefully, Lin Yangkai nodded. Indeed, she had a good impression of Li Xinwei before she got married in Chu Xia. Moreover, Zhang Xinhuan never spoke ill of others, so she couldn't see the true nature of Li Xinwei. When she and I are together, if there are outsiders, she will be particularly enthusiastic, and keep saying that although we have different surnames, we have the same character in the middle of our names. This is fate. Therefore, after marrying into the Lin family, she and I are particularly close. You said, if it were you, would you be able to say such a thing when facing Lu Lingmei? Zhang Xinhuan spread her hands. I just have this ability, as long as there are benefits in front of me. She is no longer her, she is still blowing her beard and glaring at me. She can smile sweetly at me from behind, but I am not good at pretending. Over time, will it become that she is generous and I am stingy? If it were me, I wouldn't be able to smile and say how good our relationship is when facing Lu Lingmei, but I will definitely expose the other person, and I can't let the other person always step on my shoulders and slander me. Sighed. Lin Yangkai looked at her seriously. In general, there is something wrong with your own character. Why do you let her act when you know she is like this? Yes, you have your own principles of life and never say anything. Human affairs are different, but when faced with such people, your principles will only become the knives others use to stab you. Old Mrs. Zhou answered, Yang Kaiu is right, Xinhuan, you have such a gentle temper, and Chu Xia is not an outsider. I won't deny what I said, old lady. You didn't like Lin's Haidong back then, but since you chose to marry him, you should focus on living a good life with him. Initial. You are indifferent to the affairs of the Lin family, and you are also indifferent to the Lin family. Didn't it leave some bad impression? Although you changed a bit later on, by chance you met a younger sibling who was so good at acting, and she really stepped on you. As an outsider, I don't know the details, but you know it all too well. Not only for yourself, but also for the sake of your husband, children, and the harmony of the entire family, you should also make some corresponding counterattacks, right? But what I saw and heard was your way of doing things, hiding away if you can't offend me. You should know that in our circle, your way of doing things is the most unacceptable. Even if some people know what is going on between you, your high-minded attitude will make people put the balance in their hearts on the wrong side, and over time, they will no longer feel that it is wrong. Old lady, I can understand why they are like this time. Don't they just think that Xiaomi is not at home and there has been no news for several months, so they have inappropriate thoughts in their hearts? They are using their own thoughts to judge the Zhou family. Not to mention that my grandson has always been blessed with great fortune. Even if he does have something, our Zhou family will always protect my grandson-in-law. If anyone dares to bully her, let me start with my old lady. Let's crawl over the corpse. Mom, what you said? Lin Yangkai looked at her mother-in-law, who looked a little excited with a dark look. Sure enough, her mother-in-law's character was still so fiery. She didn't say anything for a long time. She thought that the old lady had really changed her temper. She dared to love her. I have been holding it back. Grandma. Chu Xia also looked at the old lady with embarrassment. She didn't know what to say. Generally speaking, people in this era are a bit superstitious and don't say such unlucky words. Why doesn't this old lady have any taboos at all? However, it would be false to say that she wasn't moved. If it weren't for protecting her, how could the old lady be so excited? The behavior of mother-in-law and daughter-in-law really made Zhang Xinwan feel relieved, and she stopped pretending. To tell you the truth, there has been no news about the children since they left. It would be a lie to say that I am not anxious. It was for this reason that the second daughter-in-law kept jumping up and down. Now she wished that there would be no news forever, so that even if Zhaidong became the head of the family, she would still have to pass it on to Wen Hang. Lin Wenbin, the younger generation of the Lin family, had already decided to go together. Lin Wenjia and Lin Wengzia both went secretly. Therefore, the only one who stayed behind now was Lin Wenhang. When it came to this topic, Lin Yangkai's face also darkened. There was no news about her youngest son so far. It would be a lie to say that she was not worried. It was just that in order not to worry her daughter-in-law, she had been pretending to be fine. Now someone actually thought of making a fuss about this matter, so how could she be in a good mood? Don't worry, the children will be fine. You have to learn to adapt to this kind of thing. Didn't you worry less back then? Aren't the results all good? Old Mrs. Zhou glared at the two of them dissatisfied. Little Chu Xia, the younger ones are better than you. Mom, I'm angry about what Li Xinwei did. Lin Yangkai quickly explained for fear that her daughter-in-law would overthink it. It's not like I don't know Xiaomi's abilities. Wenbin and Wenji are also smart, so nothing will happen. Absolutely. Yes, Aunt Zhou. Actually, I'm not worried about the child. I'm just angry that Li Xinwei is taking advantage of this time to cause trouble. After all, we are a family. What she did is so chilling. Is this the first time she has done something? Hangzhen, old Mrs. Zhou looked at her lightly. You guys all know what kind of character she is, but you still insist on letting her lead the way. This is not what you are looking for. Upset. In fact, we all know that such a task is risky, but whether we worry or not, things will not change. So, when we stay at home, we should adjust our mentality and let the children not worry. As for Li Xinwei's little tricks, now that we have seen it clearly, why are we still influenced by her? Anyway, I won't give her any face here in the future. Xia, next time she comes to see you or your parents, you don't need to pay any attention to her. I'll just use a stick to drive her out. Anyway, my reputation in the circle has always been like this. I don't mind others gossiping. He actually wanted to take advantage of my grandson-in-law. I think she is really tired of living. Is it true that I have become a toothless tiger because of my age? I want to let her try. What does this toothless tiger look like when it shows off its power? There is no regret medicine in this world. Aunt Zhou, you are still the best. Zhang Xinwan looked at Mrs. Zhou with admiration. You are the one I admire the most. You are not pretending at all. I feel most comfortable when I am with you. Okay, no need to put a high hat on me. Do you think I don't know what is being said in the circle? Old Mrs. Joe snorted coldly, I don't eat or drink their food, so there is no need for them to meddle in their own business. I don't matter whether I'm a slut or a virtuous person, I don't have to live with them, so I can say whatever I like. Anyway, as long as my family is safe and not wronged, others can say whatever they like. Grandma, I want to learn from you. Chusia looked at old Mrs. Joe with admiration, you are really the wisest old lady I have ever seen. No one else can compare with you. Well, my child, you are very lively and have the right ideas at critical moments, but sometimes you are too kind and easily influenced by others. Sighing, Mrs. Joe looked at Chusia seriously, Grandma, didn't you say kindness is wrong, but it depends on who is right. For some people, the nicer you are to her, the more she will treat you as a fool. Whether it's your mother's family's background, your husband's family's background, or your own abilities, you definitely have the capital to be arrogant. If anyone dares to bully you in the future, don't tolerate it at all, do you understand? Chusia nodded repeatedly, I know, if I really get into trouble, my grandma will support me. What should I be afraid of? It happened that Mr. Zhao and Mrs. Zhao pushed the south, north in from the outside. When they heard Chusia's words, they couldn't help but smile, just spoil her. Xiaomi can't stand her when the time comes, but she wants to find you support me, Mrs. Zhao said. Sister-in-law of the Zhao family, please rest assured. No matter what happens in early summer, Xiaomi will never change her feelings. After laughing twice, Mrs. Zhao continued, say something. It is no exaggeration to say that if we dare to offend Chusia now, that boy will definitely cut ties with the Zhao family immediately. Chusia Bai's defense, Grandma, how can it be so exaggerated? Grandma, this is not an exaggeration. Mrs. Zhao looked at her grandson-in-law seriously, it's not like you don't know that before I met you, the child couldn't go home several times a year, and he was not good to his family. Look at your face now, it looks like you have completely changed. Hey, it's really sad to say that we, the whole family, can't stand up to you. Grandma. Although he knew that the old lady's words were mostly joking, Chusia still looked embarrassed. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1055. Popular recommendations. Second update. The two little guys are so cute. Looking at the two fat boys lying in the stroller, Zhang Xinwan looked envious, Yang Kaiu, you are so lucky, I am 1 year older than you are already a grandma, but I don't even have a daughter-in-law yet. Lin Yang Kaiu couldn't help but roll her eyes at her, who said it's not possible? Aren't Wenbin and Yuan Hui already settled? When Wenbin comes back, they will get married immediately, and you will be a grandma in the blink of an eye. We still don't know when we will come back. Zhang Xinwan sighed and patted her forehead fiercely, Jing has been worried about all these messy things these days. When Wenbin left, I promised him that I would help take care of Yuan. An old couple. As a result, my children have been gone for so many days, and I haven't even gone there once. How disappointing would it be if my children knew about this? He stood up quickly and said, no, I'd better hurry over now. After taking 2 steps, he turned back and told Chusia, Xia, your parents are back. You need to inform them first, and I'll come over in the afternoon. Chusia quickly nodded in agreement, okay, don't worry, Auntie, I will talk about this as soon as they come back. This child's personality is quite similar to Zinkin's. After Zhang Xinwan left the house, Mrs. Zhao couldn't help but sigh. Lin Yangkaiu nodded, it's a bit similar, but she is easier to get along with than Zhu Zinkin. Both of them are more straightforward, but Zhang Xinwan is gentle and Zhu Xingkan is fiery. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been at odds with Zhu Xingkan for so many years. Compatible. Mrs. Zhou rolled her eyes at her daughter-in-law. The incompatibility between you two is all an illusion. Look at when did Xingkan do anything that was wrong to our family? In fact, if you really want to talk about it, you have to thank her. If she hadn't always acted like she was at odds with you, there would have been a lot of information about our family that would have been impossible to find out. If we really talk about it, our family owes the Jing family, hey. Seeing that the topic was about to come to him, Chu Xia hurriedly left. Grandma and Mom are chatting first. It's time to have dinner. I'll take them back to the room. Mom, you scared Chu Xia. After the daughter-in-law returned to the room, Lin Yangqiu deliberately approached Mrs. Zhou and joked, according to your wishes, I should have let Chu Xia marry me. To Jingzhe. Do you have the final say? Mrs. Zhou rolled her eyes at her. I just said that our family owes the Jing family. But I didn't say that I had to give in to this kind of thing. The fact that Chu Xia and Xiaomi can be together is the result of Xiaomi's own efforts. Neither you nor I have any effect. That's true. Lin Yangqiu continued to tease her old lady. According to your wishes at that time, Chu Xia really couldn't become our wife. Yangqiu, do you dislike my old lady? Old Mrs. Zhou glared at her daughter-in-law. Why are you targeting me everywhere? Brother Zhao and sister-in-law Zhao have misunderstood me. Let me see what you do. No way. Mrs. Zhao waved her hands repeatedly. We won't misunderstand, right, old man? That's right, no one will misunderstand you. If you don't say anything else, we have been here to stay for these days. How do you treat early summer and our whole family? It's not like I don't know. If I misunderstand you just because of a few words, wouldn't I be a white-eyed wolf? Near noon, Zhao Yulan and Lin Baohe came back with 2 baskets of vegetables, followed by Sister Yin Wanlao and Mr. Yu and Aunt Yu. Not only did we collect the dishes, we also came with us to share the meal, Mr. Wan said as soon as he entered the door. Aunt Yin and Aunt Yu smiled sheepishly while saying hello. They had no choice but to follow them. As a woman, there are still some psychological barriers to this kind of thing. There are so many people and the meal is so lively. It's not too late for us to welcome them. Old Mrs. Zhou smiled and asked a few people to sit down. She then told Aunt Qin and Li in the kitchen, just leave the dishes that have been cooked like that, and put away the uncooked dishes first. Come on, wash some fresh vegetables and take out the mutton rolls and beef rolls from the refrigerator. Let's make hot pot for lunch. Aunt Qin and Molly responded and took the time to start working. Mrs. Zhou turned to look at Lin Yangqiu. It's better that you go invite your Uncle Yuan and Aunt Yuan. Okay, Lin Yangqiu agreed happily. Yuan Lao was not as familiar with them as Wan Lao and Yu Lao. If a nanny was sent there, the old couple would never come. When Chu Xia put the 2 little ones to sleep, she found that the hall was full of people. She greeted them one by one, and then rushed to the kitchen to find her father and her mother. Why did you come in? Zhao Yulan looked up at her daughter. No matter how clean it is, there is still oil smoke. Didn't Xiaomi say that you can't smell the oil smoke now? It's not good for your health. Knowing that his daughter would not run in for no reason, Lin Baohe quickly took over his wife's words. Xia, listen to your mother and go out first. If you have anything to do, wait until after dinner. Helpless, Chu Xia had no choice but to obey the couple's instructions. Although her father and mother doted on her, they would never let her go as Zhou Mikang ordered things that were good for her health. Sometimes I find it funny when I think about her. What sin didn't her mother suffer when she gave birth to her? Now it was her turn, and she was frightened to death at the slightest thing. Even in future generations, many pregnant women did not receive that much care. However, she quite enjoyed this feeling. If she didn't attach great importance to it, how could she care so much? When the hot pot was served, the original couple, Lin Yangqiu and Zhang Xinwan, also arrived. Zhang Xinwan looked at Chu Xia questioningly, and Chu Xia smiled helplessly and shook her head. Noticing the little moves between their daughter and Zhang Xinwan, Zhao Yulan and Lin Baohe looked at each other and walked over. They first greeted the original couple, and then greeted Zhang Xinwan affectionately. "Sister-in-law, I haven't seen you for a long time. We sit next to each other, so we can chat." After all, it was in front of a large table of people, so Zhang Xinwan would not mention the troubles at home. Therefore, even though she was sitting next to Zhao Yulan, they were chatting about interesting things about the north, south, and north. The two little guys' little faces have grown, and they are as cute as they are white and tender. As long as Zhao Yulan mentions her two little grandsons, Zhao Yulan's mouth will never close. At the beginning, Zhang Xinwan just wanted to find a topic to get closer to Zhao Yulan. But later on, she was really attracted. Halfway through the meal, she ran to the room to entertain the baby. Li Ma was playing with Nanan and Bai Bei with a small colorful flag. When she saw Zhao Yulan and Zhang Xinwan entering the room, she quickly stood up and said hello with a shy smile. Zhao Yulan smiled at her. "You go to eat first, the little guys will get angry when my sister-in-law and I are watching." Li Ma thanked her and left. The two little ones were only 3 months old, and their facial expressions were basically nothing except crying and laughing. Therefore, after making the two little ones laugh happily for a while, Zhang Xinwan reluctantly left her when she saw that the boredom was about to turn from sunny to gloomy. He stopped his hand. "Sister-in-law, why did you come here today?" Zhao Yulan asked, patting the two little ones who were a little tired. "Yes," Zhang Xinwan nodded, "I came here in the morning. I was entrusted by your elder brother to say hello to you and Baohe first. But when you were not here, I told Chu Xia first. Originally, I wanted to she revealed the information to you first, but unexpectedly, before she could say anything, I was back again." After a moment of hesitation, Zhao Yulan asked, "Is it still about her second uncle's affairs?" "Yes," Zhang Xinwan nodded, "I just want to remind the third brother and younger siblings to be more careful about them." Sighing, she continued, "The third younger brother and sister have been really crazy during this time." The door opened and Chu Xia and Lin Baohe came in. They smiled at Zhang Xinwan and said, "Auntie, I brought Dad here too." Now that both the couple were here, and Chu Xia was also there, Zhang Xinwan told Lin Baohe and his wife what they had said before in detail, and Chu Xia also chimed in with a few words. When Zhang Xinwan finished speaking, Lin Baohe immediately expressed his opinion. "Sister-in-law, originally we had no requirements for anything. We never thought it would be like this. Come on, it's luck. No, we have to live as usual. But now that my second brother and sister-in-law have such an idea, my mind will naturally change. You guys don't know me well enough. I don't care about anything. But..." After a pause, Lin Baohe's face became serious. "If anyone dares to have a wrong idea about my wife and daughter, I won't let him have his way even if I die. I had this temper before when we were still in Dalan village and had nothing. Now, I am even less likely to let others bully my wife and children. This belongs to us. Please discuss it with us and we can agree on anything. If you are playing this kind of heresy, don't blame me, Lin Baohe, for being unkind. I treat them as second brother and second sister-in-law, so I call them politely. I don't treat them like them. They are the second brother and the second sister-in-law, they are nothing. Sister-in-law, I just want to ask what the uncle and aunt's mother think. They are making trouble like this, but the uncle and aunt's mother haven't made it clear. Manner. Dad was so angry with them that he had a heart attack. Mom has been busy taking care of Dad, so I didn't bother them. It's precisely because the house is in such a mess and Zhaidong is so busy that we are in such a hurry to find you. If our predictions are good, they will definitely come over in the next 2 days. In 5 days, it will be 100 years for South, South, North and North. It is impossible for them not to take advantage of this opportunity. Therefore, I came here to talk about this in advance because I want you to make good preparations so that you don't get caught by her when the time comes. That woman has never been a shameless person, and she likes to pick troubles when others are in trouble. Of course, it is possible that we guessed wrong, but it is always good to be prepared. If I really wronged them, I will personally apologize to them at that time. R1152. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 1056. Happy New Year's Eve to everyone. She dares, after hearing Zhang Xinwan's guess, Lin Baohe frowned tightly. If she really dares to pick a fight when my grandson turns 100, I will definitely beat her until she can't walk or speak. What he said is true. Ding Dion he can do any shit. Dad is not acting like a fool by doing this. Chu Xia argued for her father with a dissatisfied look on her face. My dad is called manly, right? Yes, Zhang Xinwan nodded solemnly. I admire men like this the most. They are responsible and dare to do what they do. She turned her eyes to Lin Baohe. In this regard, your eldest brother is not as good as you. Sister-in-law, don't say that. Brother is a person who does big things. He must think more about everything. As for me, I have no other prospects, just brute force. To be honest, it's thanks to Xia's good luck that I met him. Xiaomi, otherwise, with my abilities, it would really be difficult for me to protect her. I won't deny it to you. When Xia was not married, her mother and I were worried a lot. I am not praising our children, but Xia's appearance is really too eye-catching. Isn't the Shui family an example? If it hadn't been for Xiaomi, I probably wouldn't have been able to escape that move. Of course, her mother and I couldn't just watch her fall into the fire pit, but with our abilities, we might have lost our lives in the end, and there is no one to rely on either. Sigh. With a heavy sigh, Lin Baohe shook his head. Looking back now, it feels like a dream. I didn't expect it, so I was worried. This will be the result. However, because of this matter, Yulan and I have figured out that when we encounter something that cannot be solved, don't worry about it. God will always provide a way. For those people with bad intentions, you don't have to worry if they don't get retribution now. It's not that you don't report it, the time has not come. Look at my father and mother in Dalan village. Isn't this a living example? Of course, it is a bit unfilial for me to say this. Anyway, it is because of them that I can survive, marry a wife and have a family. But, after a pause, Lin Baohe shook his head. If I really had to choose between them, I really can't find anything. Zhao Yulan glared at him and interrupted him. Look at you. Why did you talk about the old sesame seeds and rotten millet in those years? Are the people we face now the same as those we faced before? I'm just making an analogy. Lin Baohe smiled sarcastically. We have never lived in Dalan village, and we have only met those people. After we came to the city, the Zhou family helped us with everything. It is difficult to meet these unseemly people. Dad, Mom. Now look back and think about it. Was it really a good choice to be so eager to give me to Brother Hunky back then? Chu Xia looked at her parents with a smile. Honestly, if I hadn't met as for Zhou Mikang, will your actions like this harm Aunt Fat and Uncle Gang Shun? Now that I think about it, that's what happened, but at that time, the most capable person your parents knew was your Uncle Gang Shun. Who else could you ask for if not him? Sighing, Lin Baohe shook his head. Speaking of which, Dad and Mom will owe you Uncle Gang Shun and Aunt Fatty for the rest of her life. Dad, you can't say that. Didn't we all help Uncle Gang Shun's family later on? Besides, as long as it's within my ability, I will definitely take care of Xiaoxing's affairs. Brother Hunky is also protected by Zhou Mikang. Although he went with him this time, it is not a bad thing. When he comes back from the mission, he may be able to improve several levels at once. Isn't Uncle Gangshun the most envious of boys from other families who have a chance to make a living? If Brother Hunky becomes an officer, do you think Uncle Gangshun won't be able to close his mouth when he smiles? That's true, Lin Bao. He smiled helplessly. Speaking of which, your Uncle Gangshun is still a bit patriarchal. Xiaoxian is obviously very promising, but he just can't be happy. If Xiaoxian hadn't married Qi Liang, he might have told me directly that no matter how capable my daughter is, she belongs to someone else. If you want to honor your ancestors, you have to have a son. I told him about this not once. Unfortunately, it can't be changed. Dad. Chu Xia looked at her father with a smirk on her face. When you persuaded Uncle Gangshun, were you also feeling annoyed that I am not a son? Nonsense, Lin Bao. He glared at his daughter with an unhappy look on his face. Tell me with your conscience, does your father dislike you for being a girl? To him, as long as it is his own child, men and women are the same. Of course, in those years, your mother and I were quite annoyed because we didn't have another son. It wasn't because we envied other people having sons, but because we felt sorry for not giving you a companion. We were worried that if we had a son, you wouldn't be able to have one. Personal care. Now it seems that our worries are unnecessary. With Xiaomi here and the Zhou family here, no matter what happens to your mother and I, you will never be in trouble. Hey, speaking of it, your mother and I are both fools and fools. Blessing. Zhao Yulan looked at her husband speechlessly. Look at you, you can't stop nagging. My sister-in-law is still here. Aren't I just answering sister-in-law's questions? Lin Bao. He looked at Zhang Xian, who was smiling. Sister-in-law, are you relieved now? Don't worry, don't worry. Zhang Xinhuan nodded repeatedly. Actually, I have always known that the third brother and his sister-in-law understand and attach great importance to their children, but sometimes it is inevitable to think that you are too kind. Of course, I don't mean that you are not kind. I think that although you are kind-hearted and talkative, you are not the kind of person who cares about other people's opinions in everything and has no principles. I've never been like that, Lin Bao. He shrugged. If you don't believe me, you can go to Dalian village and ask. Aunt Zhong still gets trembling in her calves when she sees me. Do you think that is an honorable thing? You ask sister-in-law to inquire. Zhao Yulan rolled her eyes at her husband and then looked at Zhang Xinhuan. Sister-in-law, I just said that he is a bastard in another sense, so, you absolutely don't have to worry about him being sold by someone else. When he really wants to sell him, he can sell him back to the person who sold him. Do you believe it? Believe it, of course I believe it. After a pause, Zhang Xinhuan smiled. Look at it this way, some things in human bones are really interesting. I heard my parents-in-law say that the second uncle and second aunt are the kind of people who look easy to talk to. But he is a very thoughtful person and is not afraid of trouble. It seems that the third brother's character is the same as theirs. After Zhang Xinhuan left, Lin Bao. He looked at Chu Xia with a serious face. Xia, Dad has decided to go to the Lin family early tomorrow morning and ask your uncle to transfer the things that belong to our family to your name. Anyway, this yard has been bought, so just bring the things over here. All the shares and the like should be signed with your name. It would have been done easily earlier, so that your second uncle won't have to worry about it. Okay, Chu Xia agreed happily. After all, she is the only daughter of her father and mother. Even if she disagrees, the couple will definitely insist on this. Moreover, they will feel uncomfortable because of her rejection, so why should she be pretentious? She has to live with her parents for the rest of her life anyway, so why does it matter whose name the property is in? For her parents, this approach is to increase her status and make them live happier under the care of the Zhou family. So why doesn't she cooperate? As a result, early the next morning, before Lin Bao he left, Li Xinwei arrived first. As soon as she entered the door, she put on a smile. After greeting everyone, she looked at Lin Baohe and Zhao Yulan and apologized, saying that he was fooled by Lard, so he did such a thing, saying, third brother and sister, there are many of you adults, don't be the same as me, I am just worried about my children, that's why I can't control my emotions. We weren't angry to begin with. Lin Baohe looked at her indifferently, second sister-in-law doesn't need to take it to heart. For us, if we take everything to heart, we will really be angry to death. With a sly smile, Li Xinwei glanced at old Mrs. Zhou and coughed softly, Aunt Zhou, I was so rude last time. You sir, don't be the same as me. What did you do here today? Old Mrs. Zhou looked at her indifferently, if you came here to apologize, there is no need. The matter has been done. If you say something gentle or not, you will be asked to forgive you. A bit overwhelming. Of course, when I say this, it doesn't mean that we all hate you. It just illustrates this fact. Also, our Zhou family does not welcome you. No matter what happens in the future, you should not come over. Or if you want to say that all the people living here are the Lin family and we, the Zhou family, have nothing to do with it, then my old lady would like to add that to us, the Zhou family and the Lin family are one family. Of course, which family is this Lin family referring to? You should know very well. The old lady's words were absolutely rude, and she slapped her face with a big slap. If ordinary people were to be so disliked, they would definitely leave, but Li Xinwei could still smile brightly. He joked, Aunt Zhou, you are so funny. I have heard before that you are not a rigid person, but now I believe it. You must have misunderstood me. I came here today because I really wanted to resolve my relationship with my third brother and my whole family. When Zhiliang found out about what happened last time, he scolded me severely. Emil. He said that the third child had suffered so much outside and finally returned home. Not only did I not care about him, I also unreasonably caused trouble for them. If I didn't come to apologize, he would divorce me. I was still a little aggrieved at the time and felt that what I did was right, but after being treated coldly by him for a few days, I finally thought about it. If the brothers Hiliang valued so much had lost his life because of me, then I would really be a loser. It's the sinner. So, no matter what everyone thinks of me today, I have to show my attitude and let my third brother and sister-in-law see my sincerity and believe that we will be able to get along very harmoniously in the future. To be continued. /U003C/DD/U003E. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1057. M. Updated to, warm New Year greetings to everyone, I wish you all the best in the new year. I would like to know what your sincerity is like. Old Mrs. Zhou looked at Li Xinwei amusedly, don't tell me, as you are now, just say a few soft words and refuse to leave shamelessly. I have shown sincerity. If this is sincerity, then I have really learned a lot. Of course not. Li Xinwei smiled and raised her eyebrows, however, my sincerity must be expressed to my third brother and sister alone. Aunt Zhou, it's not that I can't trust you, it's really a private matter of the Lin family. I can inform people who are not part of the Lin family without the consent of the elders. If we can't let Aunt Zhou know, then we have no interest in knowing. Lin Baohe looked at Li Xinwei indifferently, second sister-in-law, if your purpose of coming is to give birth to a child for us and the Zhou family, then you should go back early. Baohe, that's not what I meant. Sighing, Li Xinwei looked at Zhao Yulan, brother and sister, you are also a wife, so you should be able to understand my feelings, right? Zhao Yulan replied in a very shameless manner, I don't understand. Li Xinwei. Why are the personalities of this couple different from those she originally knew? Second aunt, don't always treat others as fools. If you want to make trouble, you can make trouble, and if you want to make peace, make peace. What you mean is that everyone must treat you as the center. That's right. Yes. Right. Chusia stretched out her hand and made a gesture of invitation. Didn't you hear clearly what my grandma just said? You are not welcome in this family, so please do as you please. She is really too lazy to deal with such a person. As for what the other person will say about her when they go out, haha, even if she has a good attitude, will the other person really say good things about her? Unless you make everything go according to her wishes, it is possible to earn a good word, so forget it. She really doesn't care about such good words. Why are you kid talking like this? Li Xinwei's eyes flashed with anger quickly, and she forced herself to calm down. I was really forced by your second uncle to come over and apologize today. To be honest, I feel extremely aggrieved because someone else had a problem with my son and even threatened to disown me as a mother. Now that you are a mother, you can understand more or less. A little bit of my mood, right? Of course, I also admit that it makes no sense for me to come to you to settle accounts. My grievance was actually only directed at my son. I was angry at that time, so I got angry in the wrong way. For this, I sincerely apologize to you, but I still can't accept what my son did. I gave birth to him, raised him, and always thought about him, but he actually abandoned me like this. Would a filial son do such a thing? Of course, I can't blame any of you for this. This is all my own business. To put it bluntly, I was just too used to him, which made him behave like this. Third brother, and sister, you only returned to the Lin family later, and you are not very clear about some things at home. I admit that at first, your second brother and I couldn't accept your sudden appearance, so our attitude he acted a little colder on the occasion. We are not as good as elder brothers and sisters, so since you returned to the Lin family, the relationship between us has been cold and indifferent. This is how I am. If you like it, you like it, if you don't like it, you don't like it. You let me pretend, it would be better to kill me. Chu Xia interrupted her mercilessly. Second aunt, aren't you pretending now? In order to put some money on his own face, he would slander others with his words. Isn't it disgusting? Anyway, her face was already torn, and she didn't even bother to pretend. Thinking back to the time when things between Lin Wengxiu and Xiao Min turned around because of her persuasion and reconciliation, Li Xinwei acted extremely grateful in front of her, but then she turned around and said to outsiders, if they had not recognized their family, the Xiao family would definitely not be tempted to marry the Huang family. The so-called white-eyed wolf, right? Third brother, and sister. Li Xinwei did not answer Chu Xia's words and looked directly at Lin Baohe and Zhao Yulan. No matter what happens, there is still a distinction between elders and children, right? Obviously, this was questioning Chu Xia's attitude towards her. Lin Baohe snorted coldly, what my daughter said is what Yulan and I want to say. You have already chilled our hearts. No matter how nice you say it now, it's useless. Zhao Yulan quickly agreed, yes, Chu Xia has always had the final say in our family. Seniority should be divided among elders and younger ones. However, it also depends on what kind of elder and what kind of respect, right? When it comes to talking about this, Li Xinwei can't pretend even if she wants to, and her face drops. Third brother, and sister, since you have talked about this, I still want to pretend I really can't reason with you. Originally, I came here today with good intentions. The eldest brother and sister-in-law took a fancy to the things you put in the Lin family and wanted to put them in their own pockets. I was afraid that you would suffer a loss, so I came here with a good intention to remind you. I didn't expect you to be so disrespectful. Appreciative. I don't want to say it in front of the Zhou family, but also to save face for you, and to save face for Chu Xia. Since you yourself don't want to lose face, I won't hide it for you. Although you are unkind to me, I cannot be unjust to you. No matter what your attitude is, I still have to tell you what needs to be said. Otherwise, seeing you suffer a loss makes me feel unbearable. I don't care if you don't appreciate it or not. Anyway, what I do is to have a clear conscience. If you don't believe what I say, you can go back to the Lin family and ask. If you have any thoughts about our kindness and the affection that Wang Xiu has for you, then when the head of the family is confirmed, you can vote with your conscience, okay? God, does she really think everyone is a fool? The question is, even if you think her parents and her grandpa have seen little of the world and can be bluffed by her, you can't think that your mother-in-law and old woman will be fooled by her, right? How could she tell lies so confidently with her eyes open? Chu Xia is really looking forward to knowing how strong the other party's heart is. Haha. Lin Yangqiu sneered and looked at Li Xinwei, are you threatening my daughter-in-law? Or do you think we are dead? Sister-in-law of the Zhou family, how dare I mean that, Li Xinwei put on a smile on her face, I'm just anxious. I'm worried that my third brother and his family will be deceived, and I'm worried that the Lin family will go downhill. Of course, you and my family, my sister-in-law is a friend, so it's impossible for her to turn towards me. She sighed helplessly and continued, actually, when I came here, I expected this outcome, but why did I come here anyway? I just can't accept it. If a century-old family is destroyed because of this, we will all be destroyed. He is the sinner of the Lin family. Second uncle, can you be more shameless? Chu Xia exposed her mercilessly, you are the one who really wants my family's wealth, right? You are also the one who wants the second uncle to replace the eldest uncle, right? Just because the eldest brother, the third brother and the fourth brother are all on a mission, you have this idea. Do you really feel no guilt at all? After all, they are all your nephews. They have called you second aunt for so many years. With such thoughts, do you think you are still a human being? Just because my husband is also on a mission, are you bullying me like this? Second aunt, you have really practiced the word family affection to the extreme. Today is the last time I call you this. From now on, we will pretend that we don't know each other. Let's wait until my husband comes back to decide how to settle this account with you. As for who will be the head of the Lin family, it's not our turn to worry about it, but you should understand in your heart what our choice is. As long as you want to save some face, don't come to us again in the future. In the past, you didn't have my father as your third brother in your hearts. In the future, there will be no need for it. We don't take advantage of you, and you don't want to take advantage of us anymore. As for fourth brother, if he is willing to interact with us, that is our private matter. If you don't like it, you can stop him. If you can't stop him, don't come to us to cause trouble. I tolerated you before because I thought you were an elder. In the future, if you don't want to be embarrassed, think twice before you speak. The autonomy of your words lies with you, but please think twice before you speak. If I hear something that is untrue, yes, the consequences are at your own risk. By the way, I should remind you that Zhou Mikang definitely repays kindness and revenge, and no one can stop him. This is definitely the threat from Hongguo. Li Xinwei stared at Chu Xia in disbelief. She never thought that the other party would have the courage to say such things. In any case, the old lady of the Zhou family and Lin Yangkai were still there. Aren't you afraid that your husband's family will dislike you if you show such a dashing side of yourself? No matter how much Zhou Mixang likes this wife, no matter how much the Zhou family likes her, when he discovers this side of her, if he still treats her the same as before, that would be absolutely abnormal. When these thoughts were swirling in her heart, she reflexively looked at Lin Yangqiu and Mrs. Zhou, and then she was stunned. Why was there no expected disgust on the faces of the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, but full of appreciation? Is there something wrong with her eyes, or is the Zhou family's brain abnormal? Old Mrs. Zhou glanced sideways at Li Xinwei and said, What our Joe family wants is a granddaughter-in-law like this, who is upright, kind, not weak, and not willing to be manipulated by others. Only such a girl will be looked down upon by my family. The grandson likes it. You don't need to look at me with that suspicious look. I, an old woman, will never lie. If you don't believe me, you can ask around in the circle to see if I have said anything that I didn't mean in the past few years. R1152. The fastest update, please read. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1058. Popular recommendations. Bao-he, you are really rare visitors, Magnolia, Yangkaiu, Shuxia, come on in. Uncle Lin greeted the group of people warmly, and couldn't help but frown when he saw the second daughter-in-law who was following behind with a face. He frowned, but ignored the other party. Dad, I was wrong, Li Xinwei said hello and knelt down with a plop, which shocked Grandpa Lin. He knew that the second daughter-in-law liked to play some petty tricks, but what kind of trick was this? After all, it was in front of outsiders, so Grandpa Lin had no choice but to ignore her and glanced at her lightly. What's wrong? Didn't you promise to let Haidong and Zhiliang Bao-he compete fairly? I just wanted to tell the third brother and the third younger brother and sister the good news. Then I thought about it. The third brother and the third younger brother and sister have never been interested in these things, so I thought about it. Why don't I ask them to help me more? I was anxious and what I said was not very good, which made my third brother and sister-in-law angry. Chu Xia even disowned me as my second uncle. Dad, I really didn't mean it. Please don't be angry with me. Please also advise my third brother and sister-in-law. No matter what, we are all a family. If you feel uncomfortable if you have a dispute, don't say it. Let outsiders see the joke. Moreover, for the sake of good early summer, the whole family should not be in chaos. Dad, these words of mine don't sound nice, but they are all true, don't you think? You go back to the room first. Uncle Lin, who knew the second daughter-in-law's character very well, could not know what was going on. He immediately turned cold and chased Li Xinwei back to the room. Dad. Li Xinwei took 2 steps forward with a pleading look on her face. You must believe me. I really do it for the good of the Lin family. Don't be deceived by some people. Who are the second younger siblings talking about? Zhang Xinwan, who happened to be downstairs, heard her words and smiled contemptuously. You have been doing this for so many years, why don't you change it? Whenever something goes wrong, you throw dirty water on our heads, and when something goes wrong, you ask us to help wipe your butts. How do you think you are so embarrassed? Why can you be so calm? Sister-in-law, did I say something? Li Xinwei stared at her with an unconvinced look on her face. You answered so hurriedly, don't you feel guilty? Then tell me, why do I feel guilty? Zhang Xinwan looked at her calmly. I have been to the home of my third brother and sister before, but ask them, did I say anything to solicit votes? No wonder, Li Xinwei looked astonished, it was you who went to slander us first. No wonder they didn't believe what I said today. Sister-in-law, you have done such a thing and yet you dare to say it so openly. You are really eye-opening. She turned to look at Uncle Lin, who looked uncertain, and said, Dad, did you see it? My sister-in-law has always been good at pretending to be nice, but how can she be so honest-minded like me? If I say anything, I will offend others. Grandpa Lin sighed and asked, Xinwei, I just want to ask you, have the Lin family ever treated you badly in the years since you married into the Lin family? Dad, what do you mean by this? Li Xinwei looked surprised. You know, I am very lucky to have parents-in-law like you and Mom, so why do I feel that the Lin family has treated me badly? Then why are you making such a fuss? Uncle Lin sighed again. Before you got married, the relationship between the eldest and the second was quite good, but over the years, how much love do they still have between brothers? If you hadn't thought about the boss's efforts to turn the tide back then, you would have forced me to change the head of the family, right? As a human being, you should always ask yourself with your conscience in mind, how have the boss and his wife treated you over the years? Do you really have no idea? Okay, you are the daughter-in-law of the second child, so you should think that the second child is good, but we have to be realistic about some things, right? Based on the results achieved by the eldest and the second child, you should know which one of them is more capable, right? Your mother and I have always been impartial in our treatment of you and Xin1. Sometimes, we even let you go more or less because of your petty nature. Do you think your sister-in-law didn't notice? She just doesn't want to argue with you. When you brought up the matter of re-electing the head of the family that day, I only said that I would consider it and did not agree to it. Then you went out and caused such a mess. Li Xinwei, you really gave me a new perspective. Today, in front of Baohe and Yulan, I will tell you clearly, why did I agree to consider the re-election of the head of the family? It's not that I'm dissatisfied with the boss, it's because I feel indebted to Baohe. When the position of the head of the family was determined, Baohe was not here. He passively accepted the matter. Although he knew that due to his temperament, he might not be interested in the head of the family, it does not mean that we can deprive him of his power. Therefore, I thought about voting for the election again. No matter what the result is, I will keep my promise. For this reason, I also discussed this matter with your mother, and she also agreed with my opinion. Unexpectedly, I haven't announced the results yet, but you have started to take action. If I had known you would be like this, I would have directly announced that the second child has no right to stand for election. Dad, you can't do this, it's unfair to us, Li Xinwei yelled without thinking. Then what you have done, is it fair to the boss? Is it fair to the third child? Uncle Lin looked at her intently. You keep saying it is for the good of the Lin family, but if you have the good of the Lin family in your heart, you should not do something like this. Dad, I am here to give Zhiliang more confidence. You also know that as long as the eldest brother is around, no one will pay attention to Zhiliang. But in these years, hasn't Zhiliang been taking care of the family's property? Why can't anyone see his efforts at all? Also, do you think I really have no brains? Just go to the third brother and sister to make trouble like this? I can't help it. I know that if I use a gentle method, I won't attract your attention at all, let alone make you pay attention to Zhiliang. I had thought of this result before going to Sandy's house. But why did I go anyway? Dad, I was really forced into this. Originally, I was interested in Xiao Miao and Ven Hang, but Ven Hang chose Huang Sui. The background of the Huang family is indeed very eye-catching, but Huang Sui is already an abandoned son of the Huang family, and marrying him back home will not help Ven Hang at all. Wang Xiu and Xiao Min were together, which was quite satisfactory, but his temperament didn't know who he was following, and he always did things that made people angry when he looked at the gentleman. If there is something to him, who can we expect? Li Xinwei sniffed. I'm not a person who doesn't care about good things. I know that my eldest brother and sister-in-law have been kind to us over the years, but people are selfish, and we can't not think about ourselves at all. What are you worried about? Uncle Lin looked at her with a headache. I have already given you your share. What else do you want? Brother's abilities are there. No matter he is the head of the family or not, no one dares to underestimate him. Biting her lip, Li Xinwei raised her head and looked at Uncle Lin solemnly. Dad, don't worry, we will definitely do it. I will be filial to you and Mom, and carry forward the Lin family. This means that it is only fair to pass the position of the head of the family to Lin Zhiliang, and can the Lin family really develop? What on earth is this woman's brain made of? Grandpa Lin looked at Li Xinwei speechlessly, really not knowing what to say. The second son and second daughter-in-law have somewhat selfish personalities, but they have never done such unreasonable things before. This time, it really refreshed his understanding of them. Without the support of the second son, the second daughter-in-law would definitely not dare to make such a fuss. Obviously, the second son also realized that it was impossible to influence the outcome through normal channels, so he simply let Li Xinwei do it. Anyway, that's the original result. What if a miracle happens? Uncle, I really didn't know you had such thoughts. Lin Baohe looked at Uncle Lin solemnly, if it's my thoughts that matter to you, then you don't have to. I didn't grow up in this kind of circle. Even if you force me to be the so-called head of the family, I can't do it. So, it makes no sense to make a new decision without me. I came here today because I want to tell you that the share you gave me should be taken back to me, so as not to make the family less like a family because of this. Okay. Okay. Okay, Grandpa Lin said the word good 3 times in a row. To be honest, he had been worried that Lin Baohe would insist on not accepting the family property that should have belonged to him. What, how do you explain it to your second brother and younger siblings? He believed that the eldest son would not embezzle, but what about the younger son? The biggest obstacle is Lin Baohe's refusal to accept it. As long as he accepts it, all problems will disappear and no one will even think about it. Lin's Haidong, Lin's Hiliang, Lin's Hiling, and Lin's Haihang were all called back. The things had been allocated originally, and they only needed to be signed by Lin Baohe to claim them under the witness of a few people. As for the shares, Lin Baohe directly wrote the transfer agreement, and under the witness of a lawyer, it was transferred to Chu Xia's name. All this was done in just 3 hours. Third uncle, third aunt, little sister. After all the procedures were completed, Lin's Haihang walked up to Chu Xia's family with an embarrassed look and apologized. I apologize to you for what my mother did, but I hope you will don't blame her. In fact, she did this mainly to keep me. Sighing, he looked at the others sadly. According to the plan, I will go on a mission next month, but in the entire Lin family, 3 of the 4 juniors have already gone, and my mother really doesn't want me to get involved anymore. She tried to persuade, cry, and threaten, but nothing worked. She deliberately used this method because after this incident, my grandfather would definitely punish my parents. She knew that I couldn't bear to abandon them. R1152. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 1059. For pure text online reading, please visit m. Among the 4 younger generations of the Lin family, Chu Xia had the worst impression of Lin Venhang. He had a good heart, but he was a little indecisive and lacked responsibility. But at this moment, when he explained the reason why Li Wenwei did this with a sad look on his face, she suddenly felt sorry for him. She had always felt that Li Wenwei's actions were stupid and retarded. Even if Li Wenwei was not as grand as Zhang Xinwan, she would not be so small-minded. Now, she finally understood the reason. In order to keep her son, she resorted to this extremely self-destructive method. In fact, if something happened to the other 3 people, Lin Venhang would be the only heir to the Lin family. Different paths lead to the same destination. Her ultimate goal and the result of her making such a fuss are the same. Anyway, as long as Lin's Haidong is around, the possibility of Lin's Hiliang becoming the heir is almost 0. So, without affecting the outcome, it is absolutely worth it to get his son to stay. With Li Xinwei's mentality, Chu Xia can be sure that her guess is absolutely correct. What did the second brother think, when Lin Venhang apologized? Mrs. Zhou and Lin Yangkai were also there. As soon as Chu Xia's words came out, everyone's eyes turned over. Of course, the answer may not be what he really thinks, but if it is too fake, you can hear it, so everyone still has expectations for his answer. I am really hesitant about the dilemma of loyalty and filial piety. After a pause, Lin Venhang said, however, my elder brother and younger brothers have already made their choices, and I must stand on the same front as them. Venhang, Li Xinwei looked at her son with a sad look on her face. She had used this method to completely destroy her image. If her son still insisted on his original choice, what was the point of all she had done? Although she didn't lose much compared to the original, it was too stupid to make a deal with losses but no gains. That's enough, Lin Zhiliang glared at his wife, stood up and bowed deeply in the direction of Lin Baohe and Zhao Yulan. Second brother, I can't help you anymore. I don't want to tell lies. I know what she did. Yes, I didn't stop her, it was indeed selfish. I promise that this kind of thing will never happen again in the future. Otherwise, I would rather break up my little family. Please trust my second brother this time, okay? Without waiting for Lin Baohe and Zhao Yulan to reply, Uncle Lin answered, believe it or not, it is not something that comes out of your mouth, but if you do something wrong, you can't just let it go. I will give you two options now. One is to move out of the Lin family, and the other is to give up 2% of the Lin family's shares to the third family. You can make your own decision as to where to go. As soon as Li Xinwei opened her mouth, she was glared at by Lin Zhiliang. She was so frightened that she quickly stopped. Dad, I am willing to give up 2% of Lin's shares, Lin Zhiliang said. Uncle Lin nodded, okay, Lawyer Su is still here, let's go through the transfer now. Lin Baohe looked at Chu Xia inquiringly. Chu Xia shook his head slightly, and he understood what his daughter meant. Uncle, I can't have this. Even if you want to punish the second brother, don't let the benefits fall on us. It belongs to us. We accepted it, we don't want any of it that doesn't belong to us, this is the opinion of our family. It's not up to you to say this. He allowed your second sister-in-law to go through all this trouble, and he must make compensation. Whether you are willing or not, you must accept it. Mr. Lin turned to look at Chu Xia. Xia, you don't want your father to become a thorn in your second uncle's side, right? Don't worry, uncle can guarantee you that if your second uncle dares to do anything that is sorry for your family again, the Lin family will not have a son like him. Grandpa, you are serious. I really don't have that worry. The second uncle said it to this extent and took such a clear attitude. How could I not believe him? I don't want my father to accept it because I don't want to break the balance. At the same time, I also want to show our attitude. We got the things back, but we really don't want the extras. Whether it is the head of the family or the management of the Lin family, we will not interfere, so. Chu Xia glanced at Li Xinwei, then at Lin, and then said, don't get us involved in this kind of thing in the future. If the great-grandfather really wants to compensate us, please agree to my request. His honey is my arsenic. I believe that the great-grandfather will understand our appeal. Okay. Sighing, Grandpa Lin looked at Lin Zhiliang, since the third child and his family are so insistent, you can make up your own mind. Lin Zhiliang looked at Uncle Lin with firm eyes. Dad, let's put this 2% in your name. From now on, you can distribute it however you want. Anyway, I must pay for my mistakes this time. Pay the bill. Do you think her second uncle really figured it out? On the way back, Zhao Yulan looked at her husband with some uncertainty. Why do I think it's too easy to understand? You. Lin Baohe looked at his wife funny. It's too easy to trust people. We've reached that point. If he doesn't show some sincerity, how can he manage the Lin family in the future? Ah, Zhao Yulan looked at her husband in confusion, wondering what this matter had to do with managing the Lin family. Chu Xia explained, if the second uncle doesn't say so, the uncle will take back his management rights. Then what position does he have in the Lin family? Yes, he is different from us. We don't value these things in the first place. Moreover, even if it is left to us, we can't do it. Although in terms of status, We are now considered people in this circle, but, who really treats us as people in this circle? Of course, we don't mind whether they respect us or not. In fact, compared with them, we are indeed inferior to them in many aspects. But the second brother is different. He has grown up in such a circle. If you suddenly turn him into an idle person and lose his value, how can he accept it? Therefore, he would rather give up the 2% and must keep his management rights over the Lin family. Although the uncle said that major decisions must be approved by the few of us, and the accounts will be checked every month, but outsiders it seems that the second uncle is still in charge. Yulan, their thoughts are different from ours. For us, we are satisfied if we live with food and clothing and no one bullies us. But they are different. What they want is respect and recognition from this circle. If they were really allowed to live the lives of ordinary people, they would probably rather not live anymore, right? Or, what I said is too serious, but it should be close to 10. Dad is right, the second uncle probably thinks so, but he is still very talented in management. Even if the uncle takes it back now, there will be no suitable person to take over. The uncle has reached the position he is today, and it is obviously impossible for him to do this. None of his brothers have any intention of developing in this direction. Which is strange to me. As a family, when cultivating successors, shouldn't everyone have a good seat? But on the uncle's side, the development of the 4 children seems to be on the same track. What if the second uncle is older? I didn't really think about this before, but when I thought about it today, I realized that this was too abnormal. Moreover, I absolutely do not believe that the great-grandfather did not think of the seriousness of this matter, but why did he not take countermeasures and let the juniors make such a decision? This, I seem to know a little bit. Wang Zhongliang, who was driving, couldn't help but interjected. Originally, Mr. Lin planned to let 2 of his 4 children go into politics and 2 into business, but later because of the disaster, he had to change. They all decided to become soldiers. Oh. Chu Xia looked stunned. How could she have forgotten this? Given the special nature of this era, it is not surprising that the juniors are arranged in this way. Choosing between life and development, of course it's time to choose life. Moreover, the uncle is not like her from another time and space. He knows the future development trajectory very well, so of course he must choose a safe way. No wonder later generations say that in our country, it is basically impossible to find large enterprises that have been inherited for 100 years. Many of them have either moved away from the country, or they have shrunk to bankruptcy after developing. First of all, policy is one aspect. On the other hand, concerns also play a decisive role. She thought about the situation of her brothers and found that Lin Wenjie and Lin Wengzia were actually quite talented in this area. Perhaps, when they came back, she could persuade them. Being a soldier is of course an honor, and protecting one's home and country is also the responsibility of every citizen. However, if a country wants to develop, it needs all aspects, and the strength of business is also fundamental. After Li Xinwei and Lin Zhiliang returned to their room, the smile that had been on Li Xinwei's face completely disappeared. She frowned and looked at her husband. Is this really your decision? What can I do if I don't decide this way? Lin Zhiliang sighed. I'll let you go. I just wanted to test the old man's intention. Now it seems that I really guessed it. After hesitating, Li Xinwei looked at her husband. If it really succeeds, what will happen to Wenhang and Wengziu? What can we do? Lin Zhiliang glanced at his wife indifferently. They are all the grandsons of the old man. What do you think the old man will do to them? But if you don't have children together, what's the point of doing all this? Why is there no point? Lin Zhiliang stared at his wife with cold eyes. If you regret it, you can quit. I won't force you to go with me. You, how could you do this? Li Xinwei gritted her teeth while staring at her husband. Tell me the truth, do you have another woman outside? R1152. The fastest update, Please read.